Cinema has evolved with technology. The arrival of sound, of color, of lightweight cameras, all of these moments reshaped what stories could be told and how. Today, that shift is happening again through the device most of us carry in our pockets. Director David Fedele is an award-winning independent documentary filmmaker, musician, composer, and dreamer. His work has often centered on migration, refugees, and the hidden lives of people on the margins. He tends to work on his own terms, self-funding, self-producing, and self-distributing outside of mainstream systems. His latest film, This Jungo Life, is no exception. It was made collectively with iPhones in the hands of David, his cast, and his assistant director. The result is a story that feels collaborative, immediate, and almost impossibly intimate. The film is currently screening around the world, and you can find upcoming showings on the film's website, thisjungolife.com. Rawy Films is also proud to be hosting a special screening tomorrow, so make sure to check out our page for details. On this episode of Rawy Talks, I'm joined by David Fedele to talk through how he made this film and the challenges and liberties of telling stories that way. I'm Hazem Madbouly, and this is Rawy Talks.
David, thank you for joining Rawy Talks. I'm very excited to talk to you about your latest film, This Jungo Life, that I had the privilege of watching a couple of days ago. I think we should start with, in your own words, how would you want to introduce This Jungo Life?
Thank you, and thanks for your support and interest in the film, Hazem. I really appreciate that. It's a collaboration. That's how I'd like to start talking about the film, because it's slightly different to many other films. I hope that it could be seen to be a film made with people rather than about people. And so these people are Jungo, which is a name that Sudanese refugees have taken themselves. And so it's a collaboration with a group of young refugees and asylum seekers from Sudan, mainly from Sudan, also South Sudan, Chad and neighbouring countries, but mainly Sudan. And the film is set primarily in Morocco. So it's a film that attempts to tell and share their story, the story of Jungo, young refugees that have found themselves in an extremely difficult situation in Morocco after both fleeing Sudan, but also after many years on the road, on the journey, have faced lots of struggles also mainly in Libya. So particularly the group of young guys, and it's guys that are in this film. I would say that most, if not all of them, had been in Libya prior to arriving in Morocco. And so the film attempts in a sort of a unfiltered and raw way to tell their story, and focus on the daily lives, the daily struggles, but also their strength, resilience, and dignity in the face of suffering. That was really important to me. So it's a film that we've made together in a very independent way, almost a DIY style, which is how I make my films. And been about 18 months since the film's been complete, and now it's screening all over the world. So really, thankful for your support.
Yeah,
Also.
I think, of course. I think this is actually where I wanted to start, because you said it's such a DIY kind of film. What's really exciting about this project is that you are the leader of a group of other filmmakers who happen to also be the leading men of your story. How many people were involved in this project? How did you reach out to each other? How did this come about? I'm very interested in kind of getting this project from the ground up.
Yeah. Well, this is the first film that I've made where I didn't have the intention to make the film, basically. So I didn't go to Morocco to make this film. It's my third film that I've made over the last 12 years, exploring issues related to migration, asylum seekers and refugees, mainly based in Morocco. So Morocco is a country that over the past just over a decade has become in many ways my second home. And so I was there just because I like to be in Morocco in 2023. And by accident, I met these young guys. I met a group of, I saw a group of African people around a fire in a vacant piece of land. And so I just walked up to them and introduced myself in my very bad French, and they didn't understand that, and in my English, and they didn't understand that. And then I realized that they were from Sudan. And in all my time in Morocco, I hadn't really met Sudanese refugees. So I understood that this was a new story, a new phenomenon. And I guess the DIY style is how I make all of my films, because I direct, produce, shoot, edit, distribute everything alone. And so I don't require... and I fund my film, so I don't require funding. I don't need to pitch a story. I don't need to take time to get any sort of approvals from anyone else. It's just me. And I guess the DIY nature of that is the entire film is made with a phone. There's no cameras involved. No cameras involved in the entire project. Just an old iPhone 10. And yeah, 99% of the footage is shot by me. Plus, I was given over the months footage from some of the protagonists, my Jungo friends, and also other private messages, I guess, that were shared on my telephone to me and also between themselves. So it's not a film that was written. It's not a film that had a goal or something in mind. It just sort of happened organically. And within 3 weeks of meeting this young group of refugees, we were making a film. And
how long was this process? How long was this process taking from initiation to kind of contact until completion?
Yeah. Well, the thing that was both a barrier but also helped me was language. I don't speak Arabic. And my Jungo friends, all Arabic speakers. And so after maybe 1 week, I met Abu Bakr, who is the main protagonist of the film. And he's also credited as the assistant director of the film. And because he had a very high level of English, he was able to help me in many ways, not just to translate, but to understand, to describe and to introduce and to really understand who these people were. And it was his desire to make this film as well. So he had been trying to film in the years previous, but many people try to film, but mobile phones are taken and stolen or lost and things like this. So in a way, I think when he met me and he understood that, because I was obviously... they were curious, who am I? And when I said I'm a filmmaker, I was able to show my previous 2 films from Morocco, and they understood, not just the filmmaking process, but the fact that I stay in contact with the people in my films and so forth. And so within about 3 weeks we were filming, but the first 3 weeks had nothing to do with making a film. It was more just spending time together and trying to help them in other ways. And yeah, it all happened very organically.
Right, and then I'm guessing it's probably hours and hours of footage. It's a 78-minute feature film that is all shot on iPhone, and you said several iPhones. So it just feels like, it feels like as if you're going through someone's gallery of thousands of videos. So you must have watched hours of footage to be able to come up with a body of work that is very cohesive. Do you have an idea how many hours that was?
I have no idea, but I would say that that's not probably... I would say that it's a lot less than 99% of documentaries made, to be honest, because the reason, or to give a bit of context, is in Morocco you require authorization to film. and I don't get authorization to film. I wouldn't be able to get it. So I also had to be very careful in the filmmaking process. That's the main or only reason the film's made with an iPhone, to sort of disappear from the authorities. And that also means that I couldn't film a lot, to be honest. So I had to be very careful, and I had to film only when I believed there was a moment that could actually be, in the end, film. So I couldn't have taken the risk of just filming every day for no reason, because that made a bigger risk for me, and also, most importantly, the people that I was with. So I don't know how many hours, but no, I would say it's relatively less than most films, to be honest.
There's a lot of aspects about this film that I still want to get into, because you focus so much on the mundane day-to-day kind of things, like grooming, doing laundry, sitting down with your friends, having a meal. Like, at some point of like watching this film, you're like, a lot of these like little things that they're doing, it just feels like supporting roles in the film. I'm like very involved in whatever, dish they had this today for breakfast, and I think that is that because there was no script, and so you were trying to film something that is very organic, or was that kind of like an intentional decision to like dive into the lives of these people, and at the same time kind of show that one thing that we all have in common: we're all gonna wash our face, we're all gonna shave, we're all gonna eat.
Yeah, thank you. That's very interesting, the points that you brought up. I guess the first way to answer that is that in all of my films, I focus on these kind of mundane, everyday aspects. So from my own personal interest, that's what intrigues me. I'm intrigued by human behavior, and I'm also intrigued by how do people survive amongst such difficult situations. Like when you sleep on the street, you have no house. When you have no house, where do you keep your things? If you have things, how do you cook? How do you eat? And these guys don't have access to any of those things. So they had to be resourceful in everything. And so I really wanted to show that. But also within that, I also saw a lot of humanity and a lot of dignity. When you sleep on the street, when you don't have access to like fresh water, when you can't bathe yourself. But these people were always clean and always very beautifully dressed and always well groomed, like much more than me. And so that really intrigues me, and I wanted to show it. I mean, for me, I said to Abu Bakr day one, I don't want to make a film about suffering. I want to focus on resilience and dignity in the face of suffering. And for me, that the everyday element of it is how to do that, rather than a more journalistic approach is to just focus when something happens. But most of the time in anyone's life, nothing major is happening. And also when you're a migrant, asylum seeker, refugee on the road, so much of your time is passing, is wasting, is just... yes, occasionally there will be something happening, but more often than not, it's just the same way that we do our things. They're just doing it in a much more resourceful way. And also I was limited by what I could film and what I could not film because of the authorization. I couldn't film openly. So I couldn't film at their workplaces. I couldn't film in the market. I couldn't film in the street. So I was very limited by what I could film. And I would like to say also that not understanding the language also dictates the way that I work, because I've never made a film in a language that I understand. So I try to observe, and I'm filming without asking people I'm not asking questions most of the time. I'm just observing, and just whatever people are speaking about between themselves in that moment, that becomes the dialogue of the film. And so it's my attempt to be as authentic as possible to how would life be like if I wasn't there, I guess is my approach.
You just said something that I also had written down to describe a specific scene in the film, because you said a lot or most of their lives at the point where you meet them is kind of like they're in transit, right? They're not specifically going to stay in Morocco long term. Their plan is to eventually end up in Europe. And in one scene, you have the camera pointing at Abu Bakr, and I think he's performing wudu, which is people kind of, the way to clean before you pray. And then the camera continues and he finishes wudu and he is praying, and that's kind of like a 2 minute, or I want to say 2 minute and a half kind of scene. But then the audio is changing and it feels as though you've kind of left us with this one frame of this one person doing this one task for 2 minutes. The camera does not move, time is kind of stuck. But the audio is him telling you, I think over the course of a week, of his plan keeps changing from having to take the boat on Monday to thinking of taking it on Tuesday, and then weather conditions are not happening, and it just kind of like you're like stuck in limbo, but then this guy's life is like going by. I thought that from an editing perspective was so powerful, and it was so masterfully made. And I wanted to ask you about that decision specifically. How did you come to that decision? Just talk to me a little bit about the process of editing that scene. It's my favorite scene of the film.
That is amazing. No one's brought that up before, so that's really a unique part of the film. And what you may find surprising is that's pretty much the only extended scene that I did not film myself. So I was in Morocco. Abu Bakr at that time was in Tunisia. And because there's only one of me, I was filming in Morocco, and I couldn't be both in Morocco and Tunisia at the same time. And also Abu Bakr is telling me that he's about to go to Lampedusa. And I personally went to Lampedusa twice at that moment to wait for him to arrive. But because he didn't arrive, I asked him, do you have any footage of yourself in Tunisia? And that was what he sent me. And he sent me 2 videos, and what you describe are the only 2 videos that I received. So again, it's making the most of what you have. And in the second half of the film, because there's so much movement, and the only way I knew how to make the second half of the film was to use these images that they would send me and voice messages and things like that. So the second half is a little more experimental because I was forced to do that. And those messages that you hear are not intended for the film. They were his personal voice messages to me. And then I just worked out that if I could put those personal voice messages on top of his footage, then it could be a way to describe what I'm not able to film in a way. And so I really thank you for saying that. It's I'm happy that, yeah.
Of course, no, it definitely did. I mean, it resonated with me a lot because when you're watching documentary films, you're watching people's lives, and like you're really like trying to get involved with these people, and you're trying to like really see them, but it's not very easy to understand the state that they are in. And I thought that was one of the scenes that made me like really like understand that their whole lives is on hold. Like he is waiting for something to happen, and that that differentiation that you saw between the video and the audio of like you being stuck in a minute, but then life still passes you by. Like you could be sitting down, for years if you're an asylum seeker or if you're a refugee, in order for your life to begin. So it definitely it stayed with me. I'm gonna talk to you about another scene that I really liked. Another scene is I think you were doing an interview kind of style take with Ayman, and he was cooking or boiling water, but he was very focused on the camera. He was answering all the questions, talking to you, and then at some point he remembers what he's doing and he does not stop talking. He just attends to the water. He gets up, he walks around, It felt like this person is not waiting for me to pay attention. He is commanding my presence. He does not care if he's going to be boiling water or washing his face or eating his food. He's going to do his thing, and he's going to continue talking about his life. And I think he's the only person in the movie, not actually not. A lot of them have like said very deep sentences, but I have saved some of his sentences. But I think I wanted to ask you about Ayman specifically because he really did feel like he had a very commanding presence. Uh, it felt a lot like Abu Bakr was kind of like, you know, the narrator of the story, but then Ayman was kind of like the troublemaker or like the person that you're just like, oh, what is he gonna do? So dealing with these like very different people also and trying to bring them together in the story, how how was that experience?
You've said it perfectly. That's how Abu Bakr is my brother and Ayman is my son. Ayman is the cheeky, you know, the charismatic troublemaker. Not troublemaker, but he really has a presence. And I really find it fascinating that he's so wise, yet so young, and has not been through school. He hasn't been educated. So he's been, I mean, sadly, his life story, and even after the film, continues to be more than tragic. And I'll be with him next week back in Morocco. But he has a very mature way of looking at the world. And I think that he's been forced, you know, like if you imagine that he's 18, 19 years old and he's been on the road for 5, 6, 7 years, it means he was a child on the road and has endured all this as not even a teenager, but as a child, and just has developed a very unique outlook on life, and is both tremendously strong but also very fragile at the same time. And he has a way with words. His dream is to be a hip hop artist. He wants to use his voice to express himself. And what I feel blessed, because I don't understand the language, I was not able to really direct Ayman in anything. So I would basically just press record and just let him kind of do whatever he wanted. And in that scene, he's getting up, he's getting back, he's making tea, but I didn't know A, what he was saying, and B, what he was going to do or anything like that. It's only like 3 months later when I sit to start to translate that I begin to understand what I may or may not have. And I guess that's the collaborative aspect, or that's another like layer of the collaborative aspect, that because of the language difficulty, it means I'm not as able to control and direct the whatever is happening in front of the camera or the phone.
Yeah, it's also incredibly adventurous to film and shoot, you know, dialogue that you don't know what the other person's actually saying, and you're trying in translation to kind of come together with a story or come together with a film that actually makes sense, that has its own unique voice, but it's cohesive. And I think you've done that perfectly. I thought that was incredible.
That's amazing. Thank you. I think I come from I don't come from a filmmaking background, but when I started to become obsessed with filmmaking, I very much understood the power of images. And so for me, and also when I'm in a situation where I don't understand the language, I'm forced to more use my eyes and to sort of visually tell a story. And then the words and the discussion kind of becomes the second in nature to the images. So I'm trying to visually tell a story.
Very cool. I'm gonna end this part of basically kind of commentary or like trying to break down scenes from the film that I really like, but I think it's gonna take us to another aspect of the interview. I'm gonna read you some of the sentences that I heard Ayman and Abu Bakr and I think Saddam said in the film, that also resonated with me and stayed with me, and I think they're going to reflect on the message that you wanted to give from the film. So I'll start with, I'm quoting, "I will not only change my life, but I will change the life of others. The goal is to rebuild our country. One day I will smile. One day I will have shelter. So I think these statements, for me, they kind of, they really are the core of the story, right? These are people on the go, and they've left their home, and they have very specific requests that almost feel like very basic needs, but a lot of them are about community, a lot of them about going home, which is a contrast of being so excited to go to Europe, super foreign land that's not, where you're from. Is it safe to say what excites you the most about the type of work that you do?
It's a thing that makes me emotional. Just hearing those words, the fact that these are people from Sudan, and so it's a story about many things, but it's also specifically about Sudan, fleeing Sudan, war in Sudan, and about Sudanese people. And in my experience, Sudanese are also extremely, very organized and political and have ideas and want to improve. And, ultimately, as refugees, which is very different to a migrant that sort of wants to go to Europe for different reasons. These guys have been forced onto the road. They would rather not be in Morocco or elsewhere. They would rather be in Sudan. In fact, Ayman, only 6 or 9 months ago, left Morocco again, attempted to reach Sudan by foot. It's not that their dream is to be in Europe. It's just that to help their family, that was the only available way and option. But, Ayman, if you ask Ayman why he wants to go back to Sudan, it's because he misses his mum. These are human reasons that also go beyond the political and so forth. So I think everyone has their own, if you ask different people, they have their own answer to it. What attracts me what attracted me initially in not just this film but other films is probably my own story of migration. I'm the grandchild of Italian migrants who came to live a better life so that I could have a better life. And I see many of the struggles in parallel to my own story or story of my family. And, now Italian migrants in Australia are kind of like heroes, but they weren't at the time. And I see these guys as heroes. I see them as heroes, and I see that one day history will kind of tell that story, but right now it's not. It's another story that's being told, and I want to make. We can go and see Batman and Superman. We can go and watch those films where someone else are heroes, but seldom do we see young Sudanese refugees that live on the street as being heroes of a film. And so, kind of a bit cliche, but it's a documentary, but it's a film. And I wanted them to be heroes of this film. When I saw Ayman collecting seafood, and I just really thought he was a real life superhero, and these are people that society not only doesn't make films about, but they don't want you to even know exist. So I guess I'm just trying to, I don't like at all this term to say to give someone a voice, because they very much have a voice, a more powerful voice than me. But they don't have a platform to share that voice. So in my humble way, I hope I can assist in sharing and elevating that voice.
Incredible. I want to give you a chance to talk about the small apartment that you rented to provide shelter for some refugees in Morocco. So please tell anyone who's listening how they can contribute.
Yeah, thank you. So that was, again, not a plan or an idea, but it was actually for Ayman, who's in the film. And I came back to Morocco after a time away, and I found him back on the street. And so I rented a small apartment about 12 or 14 months ago for Ayman and some other young guys. And now that's maybe 5 months ago, I did a crowdfunding, and we achieved our target and exceeded it. So I'm now renting 2 houses and 2 other rooms in Morocco that's got almost up to 20 people off the street. If anyone's interested to find out more, you can go to the film's website, which is thisjungolife.com, and there's a link to the GoFundMe page. And in 3 days, I'll be back on an aeroplane. I'm in Australia right now. I'll be in Morocco on 4 days, and I'll be with Eamon, and I'll be in these houses that we're renting and continuing this work. And to be honest, for me, the film is just a very small part of this overall project that has been the last 2.5 years of my life.
Okay, that takes me to the last question. So what's next for David?
Yeah. Well, immediately, so the next 3 months I'm going to be back on the road. I don't really live in one place. So a film like this, it's difficult to find an audience, or an audience that will satisfy my, I want as many people as possible to see this. So I go on the road with my film, much like a musician would go on the road with an album. And so the next few months I'll be traveling around Africa and Europe with the film. And then that will be around 2 years of screenings. And I'll always be very close to my Jungo friends, no matter, next project. I'm also looking at doing a photographic project using photos that I've taken over the last 2 years with Sudanese refugee friends. And I think that can be a really interesting, not side project, but like a sister project, I guess, to the film as well. And start of next year, I'll probably be the way I work. I kind of fully commit to one project, and then I have a pause, and then sort of fully commit to a new project. So I have some ideas, but I don't have that project yet. I don't have the spark yet for the new project.
Good. I have no doubt you'll be able to find that very soon.
Yeah, I mean, ideas find me, and I find ideas, and I mean, there's so many stories. These stories of migration, refugees, has been a huge part of my life over the last 12 years. And I'll be just as interested to find the answer to that question about what I throw myself into next.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know there's a lot of coordination that went into this. You're in Australia, I'm in Egypt. There's time difference and technical difficulties and all of these things. But I really appreciate this conversation, and I really appreciated your film. Very excited for the screening coming October 12th in Berlin. And please always keep us in the loop of all of your next projects.
Thank you for your really insightful questions and thoughtful reflection to the film. I super appreciate that. Thank you.
That was our conversation with David Fedele, filmmaker behind This Jungo Life, a project that reimagines what filmmaking can look like when the tools are accessible to everyone. You can find out more about the film, including its upcoming screenings, at thisjungolife.com. And if you're in Berlin, Rawy Films will be hosting a special screening tomorrow, so make sure to check out Instagram for details. This episode was hosted and edited by me, Hazem Madbouly, produced by Rawy Films, graphic design by Omar Rifaat, and music by Moch, titled Hayal Ashgar. This was Rawy Talks. Thank you for listening.